Well, hello there, and welcome to the Matt Power Show podcast, our fun little show where we discuss all sorts of nerd culture items, TV, movies, comic books, video games, music, sports, if we ever get around to it. I am your titular host, Matt Powers, a former superhero, comic book character, and now elder millennial podcasting a podcast, because if you're not podcasting as a millennial, then what are you doing with your life, buddy? Thanks for coming in, guys. Thanks for listening to me today. This is kind of our new format. I've said this is, I think, episode 9. I don't need to really say that anymore, I guess. But if you're new here, what we like to do is it's just a discussion. I pick a topic that I'm interested in talking about, and I just talk about it for a little while. Now, I'm not saying I'm right about anything. I'm not saying you're wrong about anything. Okay? It's just a fun way to talk about something, just kind of, and not even to a point. Like, I'm not even trying to necessarily make a point about anything in particular. I'm having a discussion with you, and what I'm hoping you'll do is you'll leave comments below, or send me an email, and then I can take all that and I can make an update video. I can do something, where I update the video and I get to talk about it on air. So like we get an opportunity to have a discussion, a dialogue even. But if you're new, that's kind of what we're doing. If you're a returning guest, of course, you know all of this. I appreciate you coming back. I appreciate you listening. If you've read the title, I get a lot of flack for this personal opinion, by the way. And we're going to talk about it today. The title says, I don't like death in D&D. Now, well, nobody likes death, right? But let me rephrase that in such a way to frame what we're talking about today. In Dungeons & Dragons, I don't believe in killing your characters. Okay, if you're a GM in Dungeons & Dragons, or a DM, I don't believe in killing your characters. Now, I've said this before, and immediately the response that I got was, well then, what does anything matter? Characters can do what if they can't die, what do they care? Let me try to explain what I see D&D as, okay? Where some people see it as a game where there are winners and losers. I don't. For me, Dungeons & Dragons is, and has always been, and should always be, communal storytelling. Right? You have one guy who basically has the story, and he's telling, like sitting around a campfire, telling the story to a bunch of other people. He's telling the story to his friends. But the difference in this is they can interact in the story. They've got their character sheets, so they're portraying a character in the story, and they get to interact in such a way that they get to change or affect the outcome of the story that's being told. But Matt, someone might say, that's what the death mechanic is there, because when a character does, if characters do poorly, there has to be consequences, and if you want to raise the stakes, you got to, death has to be an option, has to be on the table. Well, let me counter that. In D&D, first off, death isn't final. From a storytelling perspective, if you die in D&D, you can be resurrected. There are many deaths where you can't, but most deaths you can. You can be resurrected. Costs a little bit of money, costs time, and a bit of a quest, but you can resurrect dead characters. So first off, death in D&D isn't the end, because you can be brought back. But also, if it is a game, and you die, well then I can just make a new character. As a player, if my character dies, I don't leave the group, right? I don't get up from the table and walk away and say, well, that was fun, but, catch me the next time you guys start a game. No, you just make a new character and start playing as that character. In that essence, death is meaningless. You might like the character that died, but what does that matter? You can make the exact same character, use the same stats, use everything, just erase the name, right? Write a new name. So it was no longer Tom, he's Jerry. Same guy. He's his brother. Same stats. death isn't permanent in D&D because characters aren't dead permanently, and as a player, you don't leave the game. You just make a new character. So what's the incentive not to die? Because I don't want this one particular character to die because I feel something for. Well, maybe I spent the money and made a minifig. Okay, well, yeah, all right, sure. But I can always reuse the minifig. For me, when you're telling a story, consequences of a story, it doesn't have to be death. Consequences can be consequences. Let me pitch you a scenario. All right, you're running a game about a kingdom that's been besieged by an evil warlock. Okay, all these little towns have been attacked by this warlock, and he's demanding tribute from all the towns. Your group, your party, a group of heroes that are going town to town, saving that town from whatever the warlock has beset upon him. Warlock's created a bunch of monsters. Every town has one. You got to fight the monster, free the town. You do this for a couple months of gameplay, and then finally you get to face off against the warlock, the big bad himself. Now, you as the players, you keep rolling nat ones. You are failing all of your rolls, and he is just wrecking you. He is nat 20ing everything. Okay. If I were the GM, and my players they lost all their hit points, they're dying, left and right, so to speak, right? They're getting hit. Oh, they should be at 0 hit points. They should die, right? Well, no. What I would say is, well, if they died, is that a consequence? Yeah. But again, characters can be resurrected, or they could just make new characters and be new heroes. That doesn't change the outcome of the story. So instead, as consequences, what I would do is I would say, okay, I'd say everyone, first person where their hit points are going to go to 0. I say, okay, cutscene, guys. We're okay. Here's what happens: the warlock fires off an eldritch blast of such power and magnitude that all of you fly backwards. You're knocked on your asses. You're all prone, and you can't get up. And the warlock laughs, and he says, "Finally, I will have my revenge." And in a puff of smoke, the warlock disappears. Okay. Then I would have the heroes, the party, well, they lost. So now they're going to go back to one of the towns, right? They got to go back to a town, they're going to rest, they're going to, recharge, they're going to get themselves healed and everything. But when they get back to the town, they find out the town has been razed to the ground, burned. See, those are the consequences. That in the time it took them to go back, to travel a couple days back to town, the warlock besieged the town itself and just leveled it to the ground, killed off anyone in the town that were NPCs. The town doesn't exist anymore. That's consequences. Because not only are the characters going to have to live with knowing that they failed, they're responsible for the destruction of that town. The rest of all the other towns are going to hear about this. So as these heroes go rolling up into town, where maybe before the towns and the NPCs were much nicer to them, thank you so much for helping us. Oh, please, 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 will you help us rid us of the demon? Now they're going to be very wary of their help, right? They're going to say, "Oh, we've heard about you guys. You bring nothing but destruction. We don't want you anywhere near this town. You're not allowed in this town. You're not allowed to go. You can't shop here. You can't talk to these people." That's consequences. That's high stakes. See, you don't have to kill characters for there to be consequences to their actions. And I think it's better when you don't, because then the characters have to live with the shame of losing, and they have to live with the consequences of losing. Whatever those consequences be. Be a GM. Be interesting. Come up with a neat idea. A lot of people want death, as if somehow death, pontificates the adventure. It's a period at the end of the sentence. So when people watch movies, they always want a character to die. That's how you know it's serious. If a character dies, it's a serious movie. But again, why? If you go watch a Batman movie, right? Batman's not going to die, right? What? Of course not. I mean, not in the first couple of films, at least, right? They want to make a trilogy or a franchise out of it, so Batman's not going to die. The villain might die, but Batman won't. But does that stop you from sitting on the edge of your seat anytime Batman's in a fight with somebody? No. You still feel a sense of anxiety. He could lose. Doesn't mean he's going to die. It just means he'll lose. And there will be consequences to those losses. I think people take the game part of role-playing game a little too seriously. It's not a game. You can't win Dungeons and Dragons. Right? You can only experience it and survive the adventure. And I don't even like the word survive. You can only experience the adventure and end. You end Dungeons and Dragons. That's what happens. You get to the end of the story. It's like reading a book. You can't die while reading a book. You just get to the end of the book. Personally, I don't like death in D&D. And any table that my players sit at, I promise them, I'm not going to kill their character unless it's built into the story. First off, if they want to kill their character, then sure. We'll find a way to do that. But also, if it's a really good epic sort of thing, right? If there's a character they have been fighting with, and one of them is the arch enemy of this bad guy NPC, and we get to that epic moment where a character, they need to fail epically, and then I say, the player could say to me, okay, well, if he dies, that's the epicness we need. All right. Then that's on the table. We'll put that on the table. If that's what you want, if you need that to feel a sense of urgency, that's fine. And again, I'm not saying anyone, if you play that way, if you play with death in D&D, great. Go for it, man. Play however you want. I'm not saying your way is wrong. I'm not saying my way is right. I'm just saying when I run a table, I don't like death for my player characters. I feel like it takes away from the story. When you watch a TV show, right? Even a sci-fi show or a serious show, it doesn't have to be a sitcom necessarily, but you watch a TV show, you never expect the characters to die. You don't want them to. And certainly they're not going to die in the first couple of episodes. They're certainly not going to die in the first season. Now, does that happen? Yeah, Game of Thrones proved you should never fall in love with a character. But that doesn't mean that is a standard. And most shows, I feel like, your main characters make it all the way through. As humans, we're looking for a satisfying ending to our stories. That's all we want. We just want to experience the story. And Dungeons & Dragons is just a way to organize storytelling, communal storytelling, in which players or people listening to it, the listeners, have an opportunity to interact with the story, to affect the outcome of the story. We've given rules and structure and stats and all sorts of stuff, but I play D&D for storytelling. It's the same. I play video games the same way. I don't like games that are hard for the sake of challenging me. I'm not a Dark Souls fan, right? I played Dark Souls once and I thought, no, this is not for me. Now, again, not that it's a bad game. Dark Souls is a great game. It's not for me. Dark Souls is designed to test you and for you to get better at what you do. It's not you don't play Dark Souls because you don't care about the story. Do you even know? Does anyone even know the story of Dark Souls? I'm sure avid fans do. I'm just saying in general, people don't know. They don't care. That's not what you're playing. You're playing Dark Souls because you want to kill monsters and you want to get good at it, right? Conversely, I'll play a game like Uncharted. Believe me, Uncharted are not hard games. They're pretty easy. So, some parts can be a little difficult. That's just because I'm not very good at video games. Uncharted is not a hard game. You're supposed to be able to get through it. You're supposed to experience the story, right? Well, that's how I feel about D&D. It can be challenging. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be challenging. But death just seems like a step too far. It removes the ability to tell a story in such a way that the people experiencing, the listeners experiencing the story, the players in the scenario, feel comfortable exploring what they do. You got to feel comfortable being able to play. If death is on the table, you're always worried about, well, if I do this, will I die? Well, if I do this, will I die? death is off the table, then you can have fun with it. So I want to try this. I'm going to see how this works. And maybe, maybe it's a bad idea. But let's see how it affects the story. And you get some of the best moments from those kinds of gameplay. I think, personally, So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about death in D&D. What do you think? When do you play? First off, if you play D&D, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you play D&D, or you've seen it, you know about it. What do you think about that? Do you consider Dungeons and Dragons strictly a game? Is there a winner and a loser to it? Is there a victory condition and a loss condition? Or do you see it as storytelling? And if you do see it one way or the other, do you believe that death is necessary in it? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And then I will make updated videos where we'll talk about that. I would love to hear some feedback. And let me ask you this too. You may never have thought of it my way before, but now that I'm saying this, would you ever try a game where death was off the table? Do you think you might have more fun if you knew your characters could survive? Would you do crazier things, maybe more exciting, fun things with the characters if you knew that the DM wasn't going to just kill them for doing it? Leave me a comment below or send me an email, davidcampproductions@gmail.com. Link is down in the description. And I will respond to it. We'll talk about it on here. Yeah, I'd like to hear from you. So, well, thank you, guys. Thanks for coming and listening to me today. Appreciate it. This was a fun one to talk about. This is definitely something that's been on my mind for a while. Look, I'm going to ask you to do the YouTube shuffle. Ready? Here we go. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notifications. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. I know, I get tired of saying it. I don't like hearing it. That's why I don't put it at the beginning of my videos. I hate hearing it. I certainly don't want to say it. You guys know what to do. It helps me out. You know that. And you would help me if you would. I know you would. You don't have to if you don't want to. Just listen to content's fine too. But thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Of course, I don't know what I got for next time, but I got a whole list of stuff. We got lots of stuff to talk about for the rest of the year. All sorts of stuff. So if you like anything in entertainment, TV, movies, video games, comic books, music and sports. I promise we'll do music and sports eventually. I might not get to it this year, but I like music, but I'm not knowledgeable of music, and I'm just not a sports guy. I mean, I'd love to talk about it. I have absolutely no input to put into it whatsoever. But we'll talk about it a little bit. We'll get to it. Anyway, thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate your time. And as always, this is Matt Powers saying, Powers out.
Vortex.